Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Nonprofits. Many of us have regrets, but do any of your regrets include sending your child to gay conversion therapy? Stephen has that story. Stephen, please take it the gay away.
Thank you, Helen. There have never been, and there never will be, perfect parents. Not even you, Mary. Connie Hoying is no exception. The difference is most parents don't bring their sons to a conversion therapy session and then write a book about it. Connie's son, Scott Hoying, is a singer in the a cappella group the Pentatonix, and her new memoir recounts Scott's coming out, the day that she brought her to an ex-gay counselor, and the regret that they both experienced afterwards. This story is from LGBTQ Nation by Connie Hoying on May 5th, 2025.
So, being me, I'm going to shake things up. So Cindy, I was reading your notes, and you spoke very powerfully about outdated and context dependence of gender issues and roles. So given that, why do you think in religious communities cling so freaking tight to gender norms and sexual behaviors that have to fit a sort of cis straight mold, even though the evidence shows otherwise? What's your and also that also causes harm? What is your kind of feelings about that?
Yeah, my feelings are I don't know, they're very strong. But the depth of the religious people's hypocrisy, it's always extremely staggering to me. I just can't get over it. How they shift homosexuality as being a lifestyle, as they say it, allowing them to criticize it as much as possible. That just drives me crazy, because it shows how outdated their worldview is. And that on two fronts. First, there's the idea that your sexual orientation is defined while you're a fetus, and that doesn't change. You're either capable of falling in love with men, women, or anything in between, or you're not. Then there's sexual behavior, which is usually aligned to your orientation, but can be different depending on your environment. Like living in a country where homosexuality is punished by death, for example, like it's the case in 64 countries today. That's one of the cases that would make you differ from your orientation. And then the second view is that there's an almost worship of gender roles in Christianity and also in Islam, but not so strong, I would say. And Christians believe it to be timeless and universal, which is nonsense, because 200 years ago, men used to wear wigs and high heels. For centuries, long hair was a sign of strength and power in men. Gender roles have been evolving for as long as we've been humans, and the fact that the religion and the communities around Christianity just don't want to understand this or even admit it. It like I said, it drives me crazy.
Yeah, and this kind of, goes back to the article that we were talking about earlier this week about how self-regulating structures kind of, end up being perpetrators of abuse. And this kind of feeds into that, where this idea that if your child is queer, that we just send them to the special camp or the special type of therapy. And it's the behavior may stop, but you didn't stop your child from being queer. You just made their life much, much harder. So good for you, parents. Yay. So EJ, a person of many, many different lights and colors. You described conversion therapy accurately as torture. So if we accept that, why isn't it being treated as such? Like Australia has completely, for example, has completely banned it. It's considered abuse. They will not allow it. You can't even do it like as part of like your church. Like you cannot do this form of therapy. So that being said, recognizing that it, calling a spade, why do you think that it is still being perpetrated, and why are we a lot of people just like kind of letting it continue to happen?
So I feel one of the big reasons that it is not prosecuted as torture, which I usually go with the definition that's in Article 1 of the UN's Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment. The reason that a lot of people, I feel, don't prosecute it is the people who did it are still alive. Like, this is not a thing that is vehemently in the past. There are people who I grew up with who went through it. There are people who I know who have went through it. The people are very much still alive. So the fact that if you were to prosecute this as torture, there would be a big push to retroactively prosecute. And given that this would be a crime that wouldn't have a very short statute of limitations, it would mean a lot of people who would, perhaps say that they're against it now, but they really weren't back in the day. It would mean they're going away for considerable time, which is, I'd say, justified, but there would have to be a lot of reforms to that to go in place.
Well, I mean, to kind of piggyback off of that, the leader of the Exodus movement, which was a gay conversion program that was done in the 80s and 90s up into the 2000s in the United States. He later came out as gay and he was a perpetrator of conversion therapy. And he's now, and like to his credit, he is now, walking his walk. And he's actively fighting against conversion therapy. He knows that the harm that he did because of religious indoctrination, and the self-hatred that he kind of projected outwards. So, good on him for that. But that being said, like, Stephen, you pointed out that, a lot of these kids and families are being coerced into doing these, conversion therapies. So how do you make like a lawmaker and go, hey, maybe don't do this thing? How do you get them to kind of understand that you can have a spiritual faith, but also that has to stop when we're looking at abuse?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Like coercion is the right word. Like I remember when I was emceeing our local Pride event, and I called out our local federal member of parliament because he was one of the a handful of MPs who would not back a bill that would ban conversion therapy. And I called him out for that and that harmful stance that he was taking. And he wasn't there, obviously, of course, but he responded in our local newspaper saying, well, no one is being forced to take coercion therapy. Nobody has a gun to their head, which is such an absurd stance to take, because it's all about the coercion and the fact that, and especially like let me tell you, this material is like right in my wheelhouse. Like there isn't, like almost every week I'm talking about the intersect of queer and faith over on my channel. So I'm constantly dealing with these people who think that ex-gay ministries are something that are beneficial, because it's like, it is especially insidious and like I can only speak to this experience as a gay man, right, who had put himself through his own conversion. Growing up queer in a heteronormative world is so difficult because you see everyone around you and you want to be the same as everyone around you, and you can't be the same as everyone around you. So it is really challenging that's why validation is so incredibly important. You're seeking validation in spite of being different from this heteronormative world. So when a young Christian is seeking out that validation and the straight men in his church say, yes, of course you can have validation, so long as you do this, so long as you're straight enough, yes, then we will validate you. And you're abusing the trust of that child, of that minor, of that teenager. And when you abuse the trust of a child, you abuse the child. And so that's how they get coerced into these situations, because this carrot is being dangled in front of them. And if they're anything like me, like so many people who have survived this ex-gay conversion therapy, then they'll do whatever it takes to try to line up with what the heteronormative patriarchal church wants it to be. How do we get lawmakers to appreciate that? Well, I don't know if we can make them. Either you have the decency to see that for yourselves, or you have or you prefer to see things through your patriarchal view and ignore the fact that that this is harmful. How do we do it other than through our votes, right?
Well, seeing that I live in the bad place, that's not happening anytime soon because they keep rolling back queer rights. So great for us. I love living under like fascists, and it's fantastic. Anyway, that being said, that's my opinion. You don't have to take it, just my opinion. But that being said, as one of 3 queer people on this panel, I can definitely tell that not only as someone that had to untangle their own internal bigotry and their own internal sexism against the messaging you get from religion, you're still experiencing in the culture. So, Cindy, you're a queer person. How do you personally navigate like conversations with people when they kind of weaponize that bigotry? When you have like facts on your side over here and historical information, and then over here you got a person that is like, like everybody should be cis and straight, just deal with it because God said so. So how do you think people should be navigating those conversations?
Well, you can deal with the conversion therapy discussion before you deal with the false ideas behind homosexuality, because the first one derives from the latter. You can't have conversion therapy unless you have religious belief that homosexuality is wrong. So you need to fight this first. You need to show evidence that that homosexuality is innate and not learned. And so there are so many ways to show it. Like I don't know, ask a cis person or ask a heterosexual person if they would be able to fall in love with someone of their gender, and see them squirm. And how do you think it's working for me? If you can't and I can, then there's fundamentally something different between you and me, and that's the first that comes to my mind. But again, until we remove all the advantages and benefits that religion has in society, we will not get rid of this. Luckily, some countries have started to ban and forbid conversion therapy, like Stephen said. Several countries in Europe, like including Portugal, Cyprus, Iceland, France, Greece, all those countries have legislated on this. So it can happen by peer pressure. In terms of countries, but it will take time. Yeah,
and unfortunately, for some reason we keep trying to take things back over and over again. I do want to apologize, EJ. I did not realize you were also queer. I know Stephen and Cindy a little bit better, so I am sorry. So everybody's queer.
I don't blame you.
Yay!
I look very straight.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was I shouldn't have assumed. Like I said, I did a stereotype, so I apologize.
It's all right.
Anyway, so now that I'm talking to you, it's fine. So in your notes, you kind of made like this really great point of putting queer people together. It won't putting queer people, you won't fix them. It often makes them stronger, which is true. Like if you get a bunch of queer people together, you're not going to make it straight. It's not going to happen. Yeah. So that being said, I've never been through conversion therapy. I have no freaking clue what it's like. I have to imagine from the stories I've heard of people who've been through conversion therapy, it is very, very. Steven's not wheeling his eyebrows at me, so I'll go to you in a minute, Steven. So I wanted to get your. Why do you think it's so aggressive? And then we can talk to Steven about his experience going through conversion therapy. I bet it was so much fun. so it definitely stuck.
So I've not been to any conversion therapy because it's illegal here, but I have been to a lovely little workaround, which is, the Bible says be straight. This isn't conversion therapy, but go on. And it's horrible. Although what tends to happen, at least from my experience, isn't that you get a bunch of people who want to be straight. It's that you get a bunch of people who are, everyone is queer, and after a couple of days, you kind of go, if we're all ourselves, this feels actually quite nice. You know what? Maybe we should just always do this. And it tends to backfire horribly, which I don't know how the camps don't see coming, because most of the people who run them are either very repressive or so far in the closet they're having tea with Aslan. So you think they would see it coming, but they don't.
Yeah, you would. And like it kind of, if you guys have ever seen the movie, But I'm a Cheerleader, where you put a bunch of queer kids together, relationships are going to start to form if you put a bunch of queer kids in a camp and they're left to their own devices because teenagers be teenagers. So
let's put a bunch of queer teenagers in a big room and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. So, Stephen, you were raising your eyebrows. Please share.
Yeah, like it is like, yeah, again, like I was reading the books and I was certainly seeing the counselors who were trying to help me be straight, just like God says that he wants. And it's so, yeah, okay, yeah, I guess it's kind of traumatizing, isn't it? To be told that you are not right and to believe them that you are not right and to pour everything you can into being right. It is why I am doing what I'm doing online now, so that if there is a younger version of me out there who needs to hear that he, she, they don't need to change. They are fine just the way they are. And it's interesting that in this book that Connie here has written about her son, it's not that he went to conversion therapy and then they realized that it was wrong. It was that like the story is they were on a long drive and he came out to her and then she was like, oh, well, I love you just as you are, but maybe don't come out while you're still like a senior in Texas. Maybe wait till you go to university in California and then come out. It might be better for you. And he's like, okay. And then he found out about a counselor who was gay but wasn't gay anymore, and so his mom booked him an appointment for that. And then like as the date drew closer, he got cold feet and she's like, oh well, let's at least hear him out, maybe he has something useful, because this was the early 2000s, so ex-gay ministry didn't have the reputation that it does now in many circles. So then she kind of coerced him into attending this session, and that's where she learned what conversion therapy was all about. And Scott he wasn't having any of it. He stood up for himself and he said, hey, if God made me this way, then I don't need to reject it. And then that was it for their time. They left and they were sad and they were shaken, but he wasn't impacted by it the same way that so many of us are when we are so desperate for that validation. And I'm so curious, like, who was this book written for? Like, this is a memoir of Scott's entire life, I guess. He's in his, I don't know, 20s, 30s now, I guess. So, and is written by his mom, but the foreword by him. But like, is it a cautionary tale for moms who don't have the wherewithal to know what conversion therapy is? Or is it written for other, cis gay white boys who were more traumatized by conversion therapy? Or is it written for gay men who didn't know that Scott has recently launched his solo career and maybe they would like to know a little bit more about him and maybe buy his album? I don't know who this book is for. But if anybody needs to have a better understanding of what exactly is involved in conversion therapy and to hear that firsthand account, an amazing book/movie called Boy Erased. Well, it's besides the documentary Pray Away, Boy Erased was written by someone who went through it firsthand and struggled with trying to live up to his minister father's footsteps and his struggle and the torture that he endured at the hands of these straight men who are just trying to reconcile their faith with these gay boys in front of them the best way they know how, and they still get a failing grade on it.
So, Cindy, final words.
Ban them, just forbid them, and make laws to forbid them. It's a barbaric practice. It's like what's the name? The trepanation, the thing that was made to people like 500 years ago. It's barbaric. It's stupid. It doesn't work, and it hurts people. Just get rid of it. Yeah, it's simple. Like saying said like this,
EJ?
right?
EJ, do you have any final words?
Just that I'm in complete agreement. The sooner that we finally get this practice off the planet, for not only just gay, bisexual, but also trans individuals, especially youth, it will be so much better for the world, because then we can finally start tackling issues that we should really be focusing on, because we shouldn't have to tell people that torturing kids is wrong.
When has that ever happened?
We do, but we shouldn't have to.
It seems to be a theme on this show that we're constantly talking about don't torture children. If you want to learn more about not torturing children and why it's bad, please click on a video. Also, like, subscribe, and ring bells, people. We'll see you next time.